What's going on, guys? This is the Fullstack bro coming at you with another video today. In today's video topic, we're going to be talking about how to go from a junior level developer to senior level. Okay. But first and foremost, when it comes to that transition, you have to understand it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time to reach that level. It's a lot of time mastering a coding language, understanding key concepts, working through different projects, becoming more efficient as you write code, and picking out different things that are considered tech debt that you could easily remove from your code base, right? So using AI tools like ChatGPT or any other extension to kind of do a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to coding. Yes, that's going to help you, but it's not going to necessarily push you to become a senior developer. AI could do so much. I use AI as more of an assistant to make me more productive, to getting things done more efficiently, and just debugging my code after I write it. There's tools that allow you to refactor a lot of the code that you're writing. And sometimes you could take it as face value as like, this is the proper way to go about it, or you would have to really analyze the code and make sure that there's no major problems with it, right? Based off of what AI suggests. This takes time. It takes time with projects, mastery of languages, thinking outside the box, being thrown into uncomfortable situations where you have to solve a problem, and making sure that your code is efficient enough so that you don't have to go back and refactor it. Okay, so the first thing obviously is time. The second thing is that you just have to improve your technical expertise. What I mean by that is, whatever job that you have as a developer, doesn't matter what company you move on to, how many companies you work with, they're going to have languages that they're going to use for their coding standards, right? So when it comes to that, you have to master the basic fundamentals of different languages that you're proficient in. And understanding the basics will get you way further as opposed to learning it from scratch. And if you're learning something from scratch, you honestly shouldn't be a junior level developer. You should be in an entry level if you're a pure beginner. Now, if you worked at multiple companies as a developer and you get given the title of junior, then you have to shift your mindset to think outside the box and learn those skills as well. So any new technology that interests you or could be a potential benefit to development, it's best that you spend time learning that and have a working example to present to your team to convince them to go this route. A perfect example for me, with the front end, it's been JavaScript, HTML, CSS. In terms of TypeScript, I had a little bit of experience with that using C#. C# is type safe, so I understood like how to define a data type, like a string, an object, an array, all that. I didn't really use TypeScript in my React applications in any of my projects. I just pretty much wrote out JSX. I didn't understand how important it is to have types, especially when you're dealing with data APIs, to make sure that you have the right data and you don't run into any errors when your application is out in production. A developer that joined the team that I'm working with, he pretty much proposed the idea of using TypeScript and the benefits of it. And he wrote like this huge document about why you should use TypeScript, the benefits, the potential drawbacks of going that route, so on and so forth. It was a hard transition to jump into because it was something new that in terms of like setting types, you have to make sure that you understand what's the difference between an interface or a type declaration, right? Or enum types. If the same type is going to be used in multiple components, that's when you need to adopt the type and then include that within all your components to type safe it. And the great thing about TypeScript is that it tells you when something is wrong. So as a developer, if you see an error in your IDE, the first thing you would want to do is solve that problem, right? You don't want to push that out into the code base thinking that you'll get to it later. It's always good to fix those problems as they come along so that you don't accumulate tech debt. My introduction to TypeScript, it was a hard transition, but after doing it so many times and looking at different examples of them converting components over to TypeScript, and then going through like the best standards to write out TypeScript type components, it made it a lot easier. So now that's like my core foundation. I don't write any components unless it's like type safe going forward. That's one of the greatest things about like having someone new join the team, is because they can learn, they have new skills that they've put in the time and effort of understanding, and they could bring value to other developers that might not have had the time to understand or look into the benefits of different alternatives, right? Because if you're working on different features all day and you gotta get things out the door, that's the biggest thing that you're really focused on. In your free time, you can look at different languages that are passionate to you, but as a senior developer, you have to be open-minded to different ways of going about structuring your code and solving problems. So if you have that mindset, you're already on the right track. Also, solving complex problems is very important. If you don't have good problem solving skills as a junior developer, you're never going to progress. So the biggest thing that you should do is not only look at the requirements that are already documented by the product team, but then also think about different edge cases that you could run into if this goes out into production or even in QA. So if you understand that there's an edge case that could potentially happen when this goes out and be tested, but not necessarily it would be an issue, it's still good to solve that problem as opposed to working through whatever the requirements are documented, build that feature out and get it out the door. I've learned that whatever is in the requirements is not necessarily 100% true. There's a lot of going back and forth with the product managers, the stakeholders that want this feature to be built, and you have to understand, okay, if I'm going about building it the way you want me to, I just need to clarify a couple things in terms of these edge cases that I found out. And once you get to that point, whatever project you're working on, small or large, is going to be way easier for you to get things done and get the right requirements in that process. If you're working on a project, work with the product managers on what exactly are we trying to build, and make sure from a dev perspective that it makes sense, and always question whatever's in the ticket. Also, when we're talking about code, the quality of your code needs to be up to standard. And I'm not saying, you know, as like junior developers, what they tend to do is they go to Stack Overflow. Now you got AI, right? ChatGPT, for example. You ask it a question. Okay, how do I solve for XYZ? It gives you a potential answer. And if it matches up, like say, for example, if it matches up to what you were thinking, then that's the route to go. But usually I would test that code out first in your local branch or like your local environment, then make sure that that code actually is efficient. Even before like it even gets to production anyway, you're gonna go through a code review process, and they're gonna look at your code and they're gonna add a lot of comments in your code and try to understand like, why did you add it this way if it's not part of the standard? You'll get flagged pretty easily. Honestly, code review will push you to be uncomfortable to where like you have to think on your feet and write better code. And it's okay if you don't know the answer. That's what the senior developers are there for. They could mentor you to get to that level if you're open to criticism. In my 10 plus years of doing this, I've noticed that every single PR that I've ever had at any company, there was always constructive criticism in terms of how the code was structured. And I have no problem with that now because it's not really a big issue. It's more of like, okay, I will go about writing my code this way because it's more efficient. And if you have more developers looking at your code, they can spot these issues and give you good feedback. Don't take it to heart. It's not that bad. I've seen terrible code before, and I've worked with junior developers on how to better structure their code, like if-else statements everywhere, using a switch case when they didn't need to, using a for loop when they didn't need to. And with that, you're gonna gain a lot of experience. You're gonna gain a lot of experience with working on projects, understanding different requirements that needs to be done, being able to speak up when you need to, if something doesn't make sense, and not just going through the iteration of the day-to-day of a developer, right? You want to be much more than that. You don't want to be just like a person that sits in front of a computer and just writes code all day. What you want to do is be a person that someone else could look up to and ask for advice when it comes to a project that they're working on. If you have a good standard or a good track record of, writing clean code, giving great feedback, peer reviewing other code, and providing just at a high level technologies that they could, like, the company can use or the team could use in the future, and that why you're passionate about it, you already get points to fast track your way to becoming senior level, right? Because the senior developer is going to look at that as like, we need this person on our on the team. Experience goes a long way. Like what I iterated before, time. You need to spend a lot of time being in certain situations to where you're more comfortable. And if you become more comfortable, you have to become uncomfortable again with different complex problems that you have to solve on a day-to-day basis. If senior developers want to give you different projects just to kind of test the waters and see like how well you do, I would take that opportunity. I would take as many opportunities that I can to get better and have those one-on-one conversations with the senior talent to make sure that you're on the right track. This is the route that you want to go. And the biggest thing too, when we're talking about one-on-one, is your soft skills needs to be improved. If you don't have soft skills, it's going to be a problem. You can't make it as a senior developer if you can't communicate properly. You have to be able to communicate with product managers. You have to be able to communicate with other developers and articulate yourself well to where you can change your approach depending on your audience, right? Who you're talking to. So the biggest thing that you need to do is if you're talking with like-minded people that know exactly what they're doing in terms of like coding, then you would speak at a higher level than someone that doesn't know how to code. Just explain how things should work at the most simple level possible. Because what's going to happen is if you go too high level, you're going to be bombarded with questions. And if you're not prepared to answer those questions, you're going to look like a fool doing it. So I would say practice your communication skills. Always talk with your team members, because you might get different responses depending on like who you talk to. And that's going to make you well diverse in terms of how to articulate your thoughts going forward for different scenarios. And don't be the person, like I know developers, they like to shy away and not really speak up, some of them, because, majority of developers are introverted. I've probably met off the top of my hand, maybe like 5 or 6 like extroverted developers. This just comes with practice. So if you don't have that practice and you're not willing to start, my advice to you is either take a workshop on how to get comfortable with speaking with others, put yourself out there a little bit more so that you're more comfortable with having a conversation and not just be stuck in, okay, I'm just gonna, code and shy away from the world. With junior developers, what they do too, and it's really annoying, is that they don't take responsibility for their errors. If you're building on a project and you just throw it out there and it's peer reviewed and everything's all good and it goes out there into production and there's bugs for it and they're not taking responsibility, that's a huge sign that they're not going to progress anywhere. What you need to do is take responsibility for every single project that you worked on and any issues that come up, and that you have the expertise to fix those problems. If you show that, okay, I pushed out a bug, that's my bad, won't happen again, and you add steps in place on how to stop that from happening, you're gonna go a lot further and not make those mistakes again. It's not the worst thing in the world to make mistakes. Like, we all make mistakes. We all add bugs into our code at some points. This is why QA is so important when it comes to testing things. Just take that in mind. Like, as a junior level developer, take accountability for any and all of your projects and any issues that you come across. If you don't have someone that you could look up to help with your coding journey to becoming junior to senior or even full stack, reach out to me for a mentorship. I can help you with any questions that you may have. Like I said, I've been doing this for 10 plus years. There's still a lot more that I'm learning as I go along. And I always keep an open mind to different technologies that are out there, try them out. But I'm trying to give you the perspective of, you know, what it took for me to get there, and then also like what I've learned to where you guys don't make that same mistakes that I made. And it will be a lot easier for you guys to stick to a plan and get to where you need to be. So that's the video. Please like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate you guys tuning in. So hope you like this video. We'll talk soon.